45 is still basically on about no collusion and economy myths. 45 is still pulling numbers out of his ass on the economy. 45 repeatedly asserted that the U.S. economy is perhaps the best ever and insisted that the last quarter's gross domestic product was the highest in 14 years. Neither claim is true. The squatter bragged that the U.S. has more people working than ever before, skimming over the fact that the numbers are due to population increases. The misstatements came as the no collusion chorus also sang loudly this past week, led by 45 with Russian President Vladimir Putin, which is his boy toy, chiming in. That gave rise to substantial misrepresentations of what the special counsel's Russian investigation actually found. And um, the Democratic campaign, Joe Biden went beyond the facts on 45's tax cuts, claiming that all of it went to folks at the top. Most of it did, even though not all of it, but most of it. 45, we have more people working right now than ever in the history of our country. That was his interview with Faux News. The facts, it's true that more people are working now, but that is driven by population growth. A more relevant measure is the proportion of Americans with jobs, and that is still far below record high. According to the Labor Department data, 61% of people in the United States 16 years old or older were working in April. That's below the all-time high of 65% in April of 2000, although higher than the 60% when 45 started squatting in the White House in 2017. On Friday, the Labor Department reported that the unemployment rate dropped last month to 3.6 from 3.8. That drop has reflected a healthy economy for sure, but also an increase in the number of Americans who stopped looking for work. 45 says, "I think we have the best economy we've ever had." That was his interview with Faux News. And then he said it again when he was interviewed by Faux Business News. It's probably the best economy we've ever had. And then 45 tweeted, "Fact is, every economic aspect of our country is the best it has ever been." That was a tweet that he sent out on April 29th. The facts is, the economy is solid, but not one of the best that we've had in history. The economy expanded at an annual rate of 3.2% in the first quarter of this year. That growth was the highest in just 4 years for the first quarter. In the late 1990s, growth topped 4% for 4 straight years, a level it has not reached since an annual basis under 45. Growth even Growth even reached 7.2% in 1984 when Reagan was in office. While the economy has shown strength, it grew 3.3% in 2018, the same pace it reached in 2015, and simply hasn't hit historically high growth rates yet. The economic expansion began when Barack Obama was in office in 2009. We just did 3.2. 3.2 is a number that they haven't hit in 14 years. Interview Wednesday with Faux Business News. The first quarter growth of 3.2% in the domestic the product is nowhere close to the best in 14 years by any measure. It's only the best since last year, surpassing the second and third quarters with rates of 4.2 and 3.4 respectively. Perhaps he meant to say it was the best first quarter growth in 14 years, but that doesn't fit either. The economy grew by 3.4% in the first quarter of 2015, so Obama had a better first quarter record than 45 to date. 45 basically, um, 45 stated that wages are rising faster for the lowest income Americans. That was at his Klan rally when he was in Wisconsin on April 27th. The fact is, this is true, although he's claiming credit for a trend that predates his squadroncy. Some of the gains also reflect higher minimum wages passed at the state and local level. The 45 administration opposes an increase to the federal minimum wage. With the unemployment rate at 3.6%, the lowest since December of 1969, employers are struggling to fill jobs despite all the talk of robots and automation. Thousands of restaurants, warehouses, and retail stores still need workers. Um, they are offering higher wages and have pushed up pay for the lowest paid one quarter of workers more quickly than for everyone since 2015. In March, in the poorest 25% saw their paychecks increase by about 4% from a year earlier, compared with 3% for the richest one quarter. Biden says there's a $2 trillion tax cut last year. Did you feel it? Did you get anything from it? Of course not. Of course not. All of it went to folks at the top and corporations that pay no taxes. That was at Biden's Pittsburgh rally on April 29th. The fact is, they claim it's not true. While 45's tax cuts did skew to the wealthy, most middle-income players saw a tax cut this year, according to the Nonpartisan Tax Policy Center. The average taxpayer received a tax cut of about $1,600 in 2018. The center calculates with two-thirds of the U.S. taxpayers getting the cut and about 6% paying more. On the Russia investigation, Putin and Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigation, a mountain gave birth to a mouse, remarks Tuesday echoed in a phone call with 45 on Friday. The facts say some might say that this is a mouse that word. The investigation produced charges against nearly 3 dozen people, among them senior 45 campaign operatives and 25 Russians, as it shed light on a brazen Russian assault on the American political system. The investigation did not establish a criminal conspiracy between the 45 campaign and Russia, and it reached no conclusion on whether 45 obstructed justice, yet it described its campaign as eager to exploit the release of hacked Democratic emails to try to hurt rival Hillary Clinton and expose lies by 45's aides aimed at covering up the Russia-related contacts. The Russians caught up in the investigation were charged either with hacking into Democratic accounts or orchestrating a social media campaign to spread disinformation on the internet. 45 on Democrats. Are they looking for a redo because they hated seeing the strong no collusion? The Mueller report strongly stated that there was no collusion with Russia, of course, and in fact they were rebuffed at every turn to gain access. Attorney General William Barr, he's another fucking dumbass. The evidence is now that the 45 was falsely accused of colluding with the Russians and accused of being treasonous. 2 years of his administration have been dominated by allegations that have now been proven false. That's not exactly what they said, but that's not exactly what the reports have said anyway. The facts is that this refrain from the Mueller report, stating that there was no collusion between Russia and the 45 campaign, is wrong. 45's assertion that his campaign denied all access to Russians is false. The Mueller report and other scrutiny revealed a multitude of meetings with Russians, among them Donald 45 Jr.'s son, with a meeting with a Russian lawyer who had promised dirt on Clinton. On collusion, Mueller said that he did not assess whether that occurred because it is not a legal term. He looked into a potential criminal conspiracy between Russia and the 45 campaign and said the investigation did not collect sufficient evidence to establish criminal charges on the front. Mueller noted that some 45 campaign officials had declined to testify under the Fifth Amendment or had provided false or incomplete testimony, making it difficult to get a complete picture of what happened during this 2016 campaign. The special counsel wrote that he cannot rule out the possibility of unavailable information could have cast a different light. Barr claims that 45 fully cooperated during the Senate hearing. The fact is, 45 did not. It's highly questionable to say that 45 fully cooperated because he didn't. 45 declined to sit for an interview with Mueller's team, which is basically uncooperative. He gave written answers that investors described as inadequate and incomplete, and more than 30 times that he could not remember something he was asked about in writing, and according to the report, tried to get aides to fire Mueller or otherwise shut or limit the inquiry. In the end, the Mueller report found no criminal conspiracy between the 45 campaign and Russia, but left open the question of whether 45 obstructed justice, which more than likely he did. Lindsey Graham, dumb fucking redneck, basically stated as to obstruction of justice. He claims that Mueller left it to Barr to decide after 2 years and all this time. The fact is that it's not true. Mueller did not ask Barr to rule on whether 45's efforts to undermine the special counsel's restoration had obstructed justice. According to the report, Mueller's team declined to make a prosecutorial judgment on whether to charge, partly because of the Justice Department legal opinion that said a sitting squatter shouldn't be indicted. As a result, the report factually laid out instances in which 45 might have obstructed justice, specifically leaving it open for Congress to take up the matter or for prosecutors to do so once 45 leaves office. And there's a whole bunch of other shit that's on here too, but that would make it a lot longer. And then there was something about NATO. Okay, this is the other one. There's two more, Venezuela and NATO. 45 says Putin is not looking at all to get involved in Venezuela, other than he'd like to see something positive happen for Venezuela. Remarks to reporters Friday after speaking with his boy toy Putin on the phone. The fact is Putin is already deeply involved in Venezuela, as U.S. supported Juan Guaido, or if I'm saying it right, opposition leader of the National Assembly, challenges Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro's embattled government. Russia has a political, military, and economic alliance with Venezuela over many years and is helping to support Maduro's hold on power. The Russians have provided Venezuela with substantial assistance, including an air defense system and helping circumvent U.S. sanctions on its oil industry. Russia is now so deeply invested in the Maduro regime that only the realistic opposition is to double down. Is to double down," said Alexander Gubov of the Carnegie Moscow Center. The last one's NATO, and it says 45 says we're getting ripped off on military. NATO, I'm all for NATO, but we're paying for almost 100% of defending Europe. But this is what he said at his Klan rally in Wisconsin on April 27th. The fact is the U.S. is not paying almost 100% the cost of defending Europe. NATO does have a shared budget to which each member makes contributions based on the size of its economy. The United States, with the biggest economy, pays the biggest share, about 22%. Four European members, which are Germany, France, Britain, and Italy, combined to pay nearly 44% of the total. And that was about it there. But that was it. So.